case you wanted to have it for any other reason or, your own purpose, right? Then you could always have a copy of that too. So.
Sure, yeah. And then I've got platforms that I'd share it on, and try to build the network for everybody.
Perfect. Sounds good. Well, it's 12 after 6, so we should probably go ahead and get started. How these normally work is we have a brief introduction of ourselves in case you're a first-time person in the group. And then we go over a brief market analysis for the local Harrisonburg market with Mateus, and then we'll either have a guest speaker or hop right into a topic. And the goal with this is that every month is a different topic. And at the end of 1 year, then you should have a broad understanding of real estate investing. So you know which route you like to pursue, and you have a very solid overall education. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and hop in. So this month is buy and hold real estate investing. And I'm Chase Lauterbach. I'm an agent here at Funkhauser Real Estate Group. I've been investing in real estate also about 5 to 6 years now. I do fix and flips, rentals, and particularly invest in mobile home parks. We have one right now, but are looking for others. And I work with Mateus here at Funkhauser, and I'll let him introduce himself now.
Yeah, it's Matthias Clymer with Funkhauser as well. And I've been an agent for over 6 years. And I've had an interest in investments throughout that time. I've done some, working on my second flip, and I have a rental. So I've worked with a lot of different investors as well, and I just enjoy the whole process. So, yeah.
Perfect. Well, if it works for you and you've got your market report up, then we'll go ahead and jump right to that so we can see what's going on in Harrisonburg for the past month. So I can go ahead and stop my share and then.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Okay, so the market report, things haven't changed too much. If you've paid attention to the market at all, it's still a seller's market. A lot of it's being driven by a lack of inventory. So a lot of competition on houses. Houses are selling fast. They're going up in value. And the median days on the market, yeah, it's low. I think last month it was 5 days. This month it was 11. We are seeing some increase in sales. That's good. I think we're seeing more activity, which is great. I think one of the really interesting things about this market right now is that we actually have kind of a win-win for both buyers and sellers. Sellers are getting their houses sold quickly. They're getting good money for it. And buyers are buying with historically low interest rates. So it's actually in some ways more affordable than years in the past. So I always say if you're looking to buy, but you're scared off by the competition and stuff, just think about if you get this loan now and you have it in 15 years, you won't care as much about how much it costs to buy, but you'll love to have that, maybe sub 3 interest rate. So yeah, that's the main seller's market. It's still a good time to buy, but it's a really good time to sell.
Perfect. We got one question that came up. They were wondering
yeah.
Anonymous Matini was wondering if we could get the recording sent to their email. It's on the Q&A.
Yeah. So we can do that. You can also go to our Facebook page if you're on Facebook. And actually all of the ones we've been doing live should still be on there. So they might be in the event page under the discussion. But that would be another option as well. So I can work on getting that sent to you as well.
Okay. Did you see the email for them?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
I got it.
And we kind of flipped back from that page really quick from the market report, but if you could remember some of those numbers there, it's going to be important later because we're actually going to go over just a brief live deal analysis at the very end. But you'll see how the agent's numbers here, since we're day to day and having everything updated much quicker, are going to be different than some of these other sites we're going to talk about doing, since you might not have access to that information. But anyway, we'll start off with the announcements. So next month on Wednesday, September 16th from 6 to 8, we're going to have Ray Catterley guest speaking on real estate syndication. So if you were here early, you just heard Ray speaking a little bit. We'll open up the mic to him later too, in case there's any questions about, what's going to be covered next month. So at the end of the presentation, we can do that as well if Ray is still available. And then we just had the market update with Matthias. And we're going to get right into the overview of buy and hold real estate investing. So it is the process of purchasing a property and renting it out to a tenant for cash flow and or appreciation. There's a lot of different strategies that could be classified as buy and hold, but this is the particular one that we're going to be looking at today. So we've got, for examples, as traditional market rate rentals, Airbnb short-term rentals, land leases. Those are things such as like mobile home parks or leasing out land to a farmer that's going to, clear it and give you a portion of the income from it. But today we're going to just be focusing on traditional rentals. A brief overview of the benefits of real estate. So holding real estate in a great market will provide appreciation, depreciation, so tax benefits. You'll get the interest write-off if you're using a mortgage for the property. You'll get cash flow if you're buying right, and mortgage pay down. So overall, paying on your mortgage from the rental payment. And we're going to cover a couple of different strategies today. The first one is called the BRRRR strategy, which is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. The second is seller financing. The third is cross collateralization of loans and equity lines of credit. And then the fourth that we're actually not going to touch on today is subject to, master lease, et cetera. There's other creative strategies that you can use to acquire rental property. So also, just to stop really quick, if there's any questions at any point, feel free to type that in the chat here on Zoom or a comment on the Facebook Live at any point, and we'll be sure to answer those questions. And just let me know if I'm moving a little bit too quickly. So BRRRR, this was a term that was made popular by Brandon Turner of Bigger Pockets. It's buying a property, renovating it, then renting it to a tenant and refinancing it so that you have your capital pulled back out and you can repeat it with another deal. Yeah,
I just wanted to pop in quick and just give
Sure.
a real life example. So I had one of these as could have been a possibility. When I was working on a flip, with what money put into it, I would have been able to get everything out right and have, the appropriate 25 to 75% mortgage on it, which would give the best interest rates. And actually would have also given me the at least the 1% rule of how much I could rent it to versus how much it was kind of acquired for, which is very, very difficult in the Harrisonburg market. So it was not only a really awesome opportunity to get a property for no money in, but it was also a really good opportunity to get really good rent returns on it as well. I decided I didn't want to hold that particular property, but that's what's so cool about this strategy.
Was that your most recent flip, or was that
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, exactly. What did you feel like that would be cash flowing strong, or is just something where you just wanted to get the equity out?
It was a 5-bedroom house in an area that I didn't really want to have a 5-bedroom house. I think I would have preferred to have less traffic just for wear and tear over time. And so I think it wouldn't have lent itself well to like a large family necessarily. It could have been multiple people living in it. And I just didn't want to have that type of property. So
yeah, it's more wear. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, it worked out well as far as the income it produced. So, but it really, really made me excited about this strategy because it could have worked out so well.
Yeah, you could have pulled the money back out, got another one, and just kept rolling it down the road. So there are a couple of things to keep in mind about this strategy. The first is to make sure that you have enough equity in the property after renovation to refinance. So that's exactly what Matthias was just talking about. Was after his renovation and the buy price, he had enough money to where he could refinance it and pull all of his money out. So he touched on that. That typically what a lot of lenders are going to want to see are about 75, maybe 80% of the market value as the maximum amount they're going to loan on refinance. So you got to make sure you have that 20% equity there. Second is to make sure that you're cash flowing or at least breaking even after refinance. So I don't really advocate making sure that you're breaking even on a rental, but I do know that some individuals do that as a strategy where they may have different investing goals where they're really not looking for the income, but they want other benefits such as the tax write-offs and owning property over time. So you want to make sure that you're at least breaking even if that is your strategy. You'll likely have to wait at least 6 months after purchasing the property to do a cash out refinance. Banks have what's called a seasoning period, and that's that 6 months after acquisition. They want to see if the property is stabilized, and then they're going to do a reappraisal of it at that point. The next is seller financing. So it's possible for a seller to finance you a property with 15, 10, or even 0% down at a purchase. So why would a seller take only 10% or even less down for a property? Examples include they're extremely motivated to get out of the property. They want income and don't want to take a big tax hit. So I've personally had a situation where a seller didn't want anything down because they had a great income from their job, and just any down payment would have pretty much gone a lot to taxes. So they wanted to have more of a write-off and slower drip of income, essentially. So you may make an offer with a higher price to sell, but more attractive terms to you. So an example of this might be, let's say you're willing normally to pay $100,000 cash, but if you're doing a flip, you might be able to pay 105 and offer them 4% interest. You might be paying more in hard money and interest and be able to save the money and lending fees by offering the seller more, just as an example. Things to keep in mind about this strategy: don't rush into asking for seller financing with little to no money down. It makes you look like you don't have capital for buying the property. And the seller is now your bank, so you need to have a track record or some way to show that you're going to actually be able to make the payments for this property. That's a big concern for sellers, is that you're going to take over the property. Maybe especially if you're doing a flip, gut it necessarily, and then that's it. You walk away and they get it back, and now they have a very rough property to deal with. So you got to make sure that all of those concerns are met for the seller. Any questions on that one before we head on? Okay, we got one. Couldn't you get a homestead buyer to come in with a down payment if you don't have the funds for a down payment? TJ, what do you mean by a homestead buyer? You mean like a retail end buyer? Okay, yeah. So you're talking. So TJ's talking about doing like what's called a wrap, or there's a lot of different strategies you could do with that, TJ. Depending on what type of loan you're doing, you could do that. There's just a lot of different options. So did you have like something particular, like one way you're going to go, or are you just curious if they're going to be able to pay for the down payment? It's probably might be taking a while to type, but what I'll do is I'll just answer what I think you're trying to say, and then if it's not it, I can come back to it later and touch on it. So what some people will do in these seller financing situations, you can even, let's say your seller financing, the seller wants 5,000 down, and when you come up with that money, you can use an end buyer as kind of a lease option, or like TJ is saying, rent to own, to put that $5,000 down. And now you still own the property with no money out of pocket, and you're getting the monthly rental income from that buyer. Yeah, so wrapping it like that can be tricky, and that's something we could probably get into another time if there's enough interest in it. You can even wholesale it like that. So there are people that do wholesale spreads like that. But it's a little bit more complicated than what we're getting into today. So if there's any questions on that, or there's a lot of interest in basically creative financing, then we could probably have another meetup on that. But when you're talking those wraps subject to master leases, a lot of that stuff can get very confusing very quickly, and so we're trying to keep it higher level today. So didn't want to throw anybody off there with that, but yes, you're right, TJ, you can do that. Any other questions on that before we move on to cross collateralization? All right. Well, so using cross collateralization is using the equity of one piece of property in order to purchase another. So if you have bought one property in the past, paid it down substantially, and you have a good cushion of equity, then lenders can use that as your collateral for a new loan. This is a very popular strategy, but you have to be careful that you aren't overextending yourself. Another example of a similar type of financing would be equity lines of credit. So HELOCs, which are home equity lines of credit, or other lines of credit that are secured by real estate, are similar to cross collateralization, except that they have higher interest rates that fluctuate month to month. And the line of credit will only be secured by whatever property or properties were pledged to form it. So for both cross collateralization and equity lines of credit, a common strategy is to use them to purchase the property. You then fix up the new property and you refinance it with a longer term debt so that you don't have that risk of adjustable rate mortgages or having two properties on one loan like that. So we're going to get into a couple rules of thumb. So there are some widely used rules of thumb that can help when trying to make a quick decision if it's worth taking a deeper dive into the property. Nothing really beats taking a deep dive into the income, expenses, and doing a detailed analysis, but this is just something to give you a rough idea of if it's worth you digging into or not. So rough rule of thumb examples would be 5 to 10% of the monthly rent for property maintenance, 10% of the monthly rent for vacancy, 10% of the monthly property management, 10% of the gross rent for property management, and 5% of the monthly rent for CapEx, which is capital expenditures or larger items. Think of that as your roof. If you have a driveway, siding, anything that has to be depreciated essentially and can't be expensed out on your taxes. And the thing to know with these rules of thumb is this way of doing analysis or using those rules of thumb are mainly applicable to single family or duplex properties. Once you start getting into multifamily properties or more units, then you can't really use those rules of thumb as much. So they're not as applicable. So we have more continued. The first one is the 1%, 1.5%, or 2% rule. So Mateus was talking about how on his recent flip, he was going to be able to BRRRR it and have a 1% property. So that is a property that, let's say you bought it for $100,000 and have $100,000 in it. You'd expect to get 1% of that price as your gross rent, so $1,000. And then you just switch it out for 1.5% or 2%. So in the same example, if you got it for $100,000, you wanted to make it, if you want to make sure you had a 2% rule property, then you want to be making $2,000 a month in gross rents. So that's based on your own investment goals and your comfort zone, but also you have to take into account the market. So just like Mateus was saying earlier, it's very hard to find something that's 1 or even 1.5%. And
I think 0.75 is a lot more attainable, but also not like a given in this market right
the
now.
0.75%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing with these two, with the 1, the 1.5, and the 2% rule is with the way interest rates are right now, if you're able to lock in a longer term debt, then you can make, let's say you were doing the 1.5% rule before. Well, you might be able to still get the cash flow and return that you're looking for at the 1% rule now because you're able to get such lower debt. So those are things to look at too.
And it's such cheap money that, once it gets better, it's going to be performing really well for, if you have it for 30 years, then.
Those are all things to think about. If your overall plan, like you're saying, is a longer horizon, it may make sense. But if it's something where you need to be cash flowing quick, then, you have to take all that into account.
Right.
Another one that is more widely used or is also very widely used, especially around here when you're getting some cheaper properties, is the 150 or 200 per door rule. So if after all expenses are paid, you're cash flowing 150 or 200 per unit, then it's a good deal. So 150 is the lowest I've heard. I typically strive for 200, but I know some people. We had a guest speaker here a couple months ago, Kyle Miller. He doesn't do it unless it's 300 a month. It's just those are going to be very tricky to find.
Yeah.
So you must be careful and make sure that you're including reserves for capital expenditures and maintenance. Even if you're self-managing, you have to be aware that maybe at some point in the future you won't be, or if your plan is to scale, then think about how that's going to have an impact once you do have a property manager step in. So it might make the 200 per door rule without property management, and that's completely fine if you're going to be self-managing it, but just be aware of what that's going to do to your bottom line if you bring in a manager.
And I would just throw in real quick, like
Sure.
if you're talking about markets that are going to get something like a 2% rule, you're looking at like Detroit is kind of
Yeah.
the shining example where you could maybe buy a place for $40,000 and rent it for 800. But it's hard around here. It's hard in a lot of markets, but there's some that you're more able to, like Detroit.
Yeah. And he's absolutely right. It's generally when you get to that 2% rule, you're still not really making 2% because you're going to have a higher repair cost than you're anticipating. And just like Mateus was saying, your market's not as good. So it looks good on paper, but your overall risk is actually higher.
Right.
So that's something you have to factor in as well. So we get into some other indicators to consider. We're actually going to talk about how to look at your market and everything else to see if it is a good rental market for you to be acquiring investments in. So the first financial kind of indicator that we look at is cash on cash return. So this is the annual percentage return for an investment based on the total cash invested out of pocket into a deal. So that includes your down payment, repairs, and closing costs. So here's an example. Let's say again for round numbers, you purchase a property at 100,000. You put 20,000 down for a down payment and have 3,000 in closing costs and another $7,000 needed to repair the home to where it needs to be for a rental. So your total cash invested in that situation is $30,000. If you cash flow $400 a month after all expenses for an annual income of 4,800, this would be 4,800 divided by 30,000 and a 16% cash on cash return.
I'd take that.
Yeah. Well, the thing too, to touch on this number here, the 16%, is if we're getting really granular, you can include the mortgage pay down into that cash on cash return. But for simplicity's sake, this is how we're going to do it for today. So if there's any questions about that, just feel free to stop
Well,
me.
and that's huge for me because I actually had my rental on a 15-year mortgage. I was living in it, and that's not common advice in the investment world, but I was living in it, had on a 15-year mortgage on a good interest rate, and we're cash flowing it. And so the debt pay down is pretty big in my consideration as to keeping it.
Yeah. So that, like you said, that principal you're making every year needs to be factored into the cash on cash return too. But yes, that looks great.
Yeah. Anyway,
Cash flowing in this market with a 15-year loan is pretty good.
and it helps when you buy it and live in it for a while.
The next thing we're going to cover, we've said it quite a few times, but it's equity. So for those of you that don't know what equity is, it's the difference between the fair market value of the property and the amount you owe in debt. So if you have a first mortgage, let's say the property is worth, the fair market value is worth $100,000. If you've got an $80,000 loan on it, then that's $20,000 in equity that you have. So the next one indicator that we're going to look at is the return on equity. That's the annual percentage return from an investment based on the current equity value of the property. So what does that all mean? Here, let's do an example, which is property value of $100,000. You've got, let's say, $20,000 in mortgage debt. So your equity is $80,000. Now your annual cash flow using that same amount from above is $4,800. And over that $80,000 equity means you're getting a 6% annual return on your equity. So is that a good amount? What about your cash on cash? What are good targets for these? And unfortunately, it really just depends on what your investment goals are. I know a lot of people look for at least 20% on their single family homes. Even in this market, it should be very easy to get 20% if you're buying right. And return on equity is really something that you're going to have to decide if it's something you want to look at or if there's a certain goal that you really want for that. There's no real guideline or rule of thumb for those two. All right, so we're going to get into researching a market. But before we do, any questions at this point?
And we can open it up for everybody to have conversations at the end if people want to. So
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just didn't want to have it to where somebody forgets something at the end. So
yeah, no, I just so people know that to stick around for the end if they want to see other people's faces and stuff.
okay, perfect. Um,
Oh,
Ray had a nice question. I'm hearing forecast of a tighter lending criteria. Any word on this from lenders you work with, end user, investor? Did you have any thoughts on this one, Matthias?
yeah, for sure. So I mean, there's definitely it's more strict. I've had people that business owners and stuff have more hoops to go through when they're making purchases. I've had certainly the credit scores have to be higher now. That may not be as applicable to investments, but yeah, there's definitely it's not like it's suffocating, but they are being more careful for sure as far as lenders go.
Yeah. And that is that mostly in the residential that you're seeing that, or is that
Yeah,
just okay?
yeah,
Yeah.
mostly.
So that's really helpful insight. And then as of like a month ago, I'm not as up to date on the commercial side, but I know that a lot of those lenders were also tightening up, and it was mostly having impact in the way that loan proceeds and underwriting were. So essentially, you'd have to come up with more capital out of pocket. But other than that, I don't think there's any dramatic changes on that end. But I'd have to get back to you on that, Ray, for commercial.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. So we're going to get into researching a market and have some nice little tools for you all to use. So it's important that your investment property is in a good market that you understand. So here are some things that you should be looking for. You want to be looking for population growth. You want to be looking for diversified job growth, diverse employment with a preference for government, education, and healthcare jobs. That's because they're more recession resistant and they're always in demand. Low crime rates. You're going to want to know your particular neighborhood of investment and what's the school district and school rating of that. And then finally, the median income and median home price of that market. So we're going to hop right into an example. Here's Harrisonburg. At the beginning of the slides and everything, I'd mentioned that if we could kind of take a snapshot in our minds of Mateus's market report, because if you notice here, the median property value showing is 203,100. And
Yeah,
what was the exact number from yours?
245 900.
That's important to know is that these are great to get a snapshot of a market, but they're not going to have the most accurate data. So this picture was actually, I believe, a year old, and then I checked it again this past week, and it had the same amount. So it takes a lot longer for some of those sites to update.
And these are based off sales too. So, I mean, it's not based off of just the values of the houses in general, but still, you would imagine it would be similar
Yeah,
or
exactly.
similar.
So a site like this or Best Place is it's great information, but just keep in mind that it's not going to have the most accurate, up-to-date information. So it might be a little bit off, but for this purposes, it's good enough.
Right.
Let's see. And then here are some analysis tips. So when you move past the rules of thumb for a property and are trying to take a more detailed look to see if it's going to be a great investment or not, here's some things you can do. One is get an actual insurance quote from an agent. They can vary a decent amount depending on the property type and if it's going to be vacant. So from agent to agent, they can have different things, but it's best just to get 3 quotes at least. and make sure they know exactly how the property is going to be and what your plan is for it, so they can get you the best and most accurate quote. Get the actual taxes for the property, and be aware if there are city and county taxes or just county. This can make a pretty big difference. It could basically double your taxes. Another good thing to be on the lookout for taxes could be reassessments. So if one is due or coming up, or one was just done, but the amount for the property hasn't been updated, and those are some things that could change your tax bill a little bit, and should be taken into consideration. And then I've touched on it quite a bit, but the CapEx and maintenance percentages. So we use 5% for CapEx and 5 to 10% for maintenance. And that can vary depending on the rental range and size of the property. So something that has a very large footprint and is an expensive property is going to have a different percentage than something that is a smaller property and a smaller footprint. They might have a higher percentage since it's much cheaper. So for example, $1,100 property may only need 5% maintenance and CapEx, but the smaller one may need 10% and 5% CapEx. If you have any questions regarding what is fair for a market, you could always ask a local property management company, other local investors. I believe Bill is still on. I'm sure he'd be happy to take any questions about what he's seeing at the end. But those are some guidelines that you could at least have as a way to follow a little bit. And then most importantly, try not to get analysis paralysis. If it's a good deal, it should jump out to you. Any questions on those before we head on? Okay, we're gonna hop into a live deal analysis, and I'm hoping this can be a little bit interactive. So we'll stop at a couple of spots and have some questions and just see what you guys think as we're going through this. So this is a completely fake property, 4345 North Main Street at Anywhere, Virginia. They're asking $61,000. Here's an image of the property. Here's some facts. It was built in 1961. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath on a little over quarter-acre lot, 750 square feet. Its annual taxes total is $427, and its tax assessment's $67,700. It's pretend these numbers are accurate. Its verified market rent is anywhere between $750 to $775, and its estimated market value is $84,000. A couple more assumptions. You're going to need a $5,000 renovation after you buy it, and you're going to have to assume that you get a loan for 80% of the purchase price at 4.5% interest with a 20-year amortized loan and have to come out of pocket for repairs. Is this a good deal? Would you do that deal? Just type in the chat yes or no, and even if you want, why or why not.
You can do a poll quick.
Okay, now let's do the poll.
Oh wait, never mind. That might be more involved. Looks like it's taking me to a web page. Never mind. Yeah, just chime in the chat.
We got 2-bedroom may have less demand. That's true. That's something to consider too.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's make it easy too. We're gonna pretend that the demand's not an issue. We're gonna pretend there's no issues with COVID. It's just if you saw that deal and you had essentially you're buying it for 61, it needs $5,000, and then it's worth 84, and it's renting for 750 to 775. Would you do that deal? And try to think of it as only from the rental perspective. Not some people would probably just buy it and fix it up and then flip it, which I would totally understand. But the total PTI. Okay, I will get into that, but let's see if I can show that. Oh, I can't. Here's a breakdown again of the income and expenses. So this might help out. So I was going to go through that together. If everyone wants to check all that information out and see if they would still do that deal now with the cash flow and estimated cash on cash return. Okay, we've got 2 yeses so far. Sounds like a base hit. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Got 3 yeses. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So when we were going through everything before, what is the one thing that I have as an expense that was supposed to be on our underwriting that's not here? There's one thing that most people would have here, but is not here. And I'll give you a hint, it's a percentage expense generally. John and Ray got it. And that's John, right? Am I saying that right, John? But yes, Janae, is that right? I'm terrible with names, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. Okay, perfect. Well, John A. and Ray got it right. So I don't have vacancy in here. Why? And some may totally want that, and that's completely understandable. But why would I not have vacancy in here, assuming that you're taking a security deposit with this rental? Kind of. So I'm not saying this is right. I'm just saying this is a personal philosophy, and some I've shared with some other landlords. Is if you're taking a whole month's security deposit from an individual, and they do damage on the way out, then a lot of that damage is going to be covered in that security deposit, and you have your repair escrow here that you're using as an expense to also help cover it. But if not, then you still have that security deposit in the event that there are those repairs. But if you don't have repairs when they move out and you have to give them back their full security deposit, which is what we all want to do, then you have that repair escrow that you can apply towards your vacancy, if that makes sense. It makes it much more difficult to have a cash flowing deal and have something that makes sense if you're providing a full 10% vacancy as well, because you've basically got essentially almost 50% in assumed expenses, plus your mortgage is going to make it, generally that's pretty close to 50 or more percent as well, just having the principal and interest payment to your mortgage company. It's going to be very difficult to do any deal. But by using the security deposit as kind of like a way to offset your repairs. Yeah, so that's another thing. So Ray touched on this too, is you can give an option for a non-refundable fee that can be large. So to kind of piggyback on that is if you have pets, some people charge a non-refundable fee, and that fee is generally used up in repairs for the pet. People see that as unfair for having to charge a fee for their pet, and then even a monthly fee as well. But generally all that additional cash flow and the monthly fee, from what my experience has been, is used up with the pet. The longer they're there, the more damage they do. So looks nice on paper, but you're not actually clearing what you think. Any other questions on this? And hopefully that all made sense about the security deposit. And that's just a personal preference on that. If anybody else wanted to put vacancy in there, I would completely understand. It's a little bit more of an aggressive way of analyzing it, but especially in this market, if you're trying to get deals, you gotta try to stretch things a little bit within reason. You don't want to put yourself in a bad place, though. Okay, perfect. Any other questions on this this slide or the deal analysis? If there's any questions too, because I know a lot of people they struggle with getting the market rent for a property, or they struggle to get the estimated market value. If that's something that would be helpful to people in the group to see how you can do that without having to be an agent, having access to the MLS, then that's something we could do another time as well. But it should be pretty straightforward. You should be able to get all the other numbers relatively easy, other than those, if you know what you're doing. All right, so we're going to talk about mitigating risk. So we're wrapping up here at the end, but some high-level things that you can do to mitigate your risk and buy and hold, because real estate investing is just that, it's investing. So you always have to be attentive of your downside. So one thing is, what if the market shifts or your rental is vacant for an extended period of time? How can you mitigate risk? Well, below are some examples. One is bias that you have an equity cushion beyond your down payment. So this is if you had to sell and the market wasn't favorable, you at least won't lose your money. So, if you bought it at 100, but it's worth 120, then the market has to go down, roughly $20,000 before you're taking a hit, not factoring in agent commissions, but you have a little bit of cushion there. The second is be conservative. In the event that rental rates drop, just do an analysis to see if you'll still be making money or if your rental will be breaking even. If it doesn't take much of a turn for you to then to be losing money, then this is going to be a little bit riskier of a deal, and you need to think about what that is, how that risk is going to be handled going into it. And the third one is, again, be conservative. Make sure that you're actually making money to begin with, and have reserves for repairs and capital expenditures. I have the making sure that you're using a vacancy factor as well. If you're fine with the theory of the whole security deposit and rental escrow thing that we're talking about, then or rental repair reserves, then that would be good enough too. And the fourth thing is buying in a good area in a great market with diverse employers. So if you're buying in a market that has strong job and population growth, then housing prices theoretically should be going up over time. And if you have diverse employers and one of those employers goes out of business, then you're still going to have other employment opportunities for the tenant base to get work and have income. So you're not going to have as much risk as if you're like in Detroit, where you have basically one industry, and then the industry turns around and you're in a rough place and the market tanks. So those are things that can help mitigate your risk. Any questions on any of those, or any comments that people would like to add? So the next slide, this one right here, is just other tools and helpful websites. They're not going to be a one-stop shop for everything, but they can at least be something where you can lean on and get some information. So bestplaces.net and datausa.io, these two right here, essentially the same thing. They're very similar sites, but they help you check the market that you're looking to invest in. They can give you everything from the median home sale price to the median income for your prospective tenant base. Rentometer, Rentometer, they can help do rental comps to see what your market rental rate could be, but again, you want to check that with other methods of verifying rental rates, because any of these sites are not always perfectly accurate. Rich blocks, poor blocks. This is similar to both of best places in datausa.io, but has heat maps so you can kind of see everything visually. iComps is a nice one. It shows you comps for similar houses that have sold recently and can help you determine your equity. The thing that I'll say with that is it's really particular on the area. So sometimes it will not even show you information. Then other times it'll be able to pull everything and be pretty accurate. So it's a little hit or miss there too, but it's still another nice tool. The GIS system. So using your county's GIS, or if you're in the city of Harrisonburg, using their GIS system, you can look up owner information, generally the last sales price, current tax assessment. And it's great to help to get owner information for deals and verifying what the assessment and taxes will be after you acquire the property. And then the last two are property management software. So Cozy is tenant screening and property management, and Stessa is like a property management software. Any questions or other inputs too? If there's any other tools that other people are using, especially if they're free, that have been really helpful for you guys, please put that in the chat so you can share with the rest of the people that are tuning in or in the group.
And notice you can share it through to all panelists or all panelists and attendees. And if you want to share it to everybody, just make sure it's both.
Yeah. Yep.
TJ is saying that sometimes Zillow is helpful for rental rates.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good one too. You can see if there's anything currently available in the area that you're looking at, and Zillow would be good. I know there are a few other paid ones, but these are all essentially free or very cheap. So let's see. Yeah, PropStream is another one. So PropStream is a paid one. That's a great one too. Let's see, you got another one here. Bill also linked for everybody that's here in the Zoom call. He has a free rental pro forma. So there's a link there. You can see it keyrentersolutions.com/rental-pro forma. Pro forma. I'm having trouble speaking. And you can check that out too.
That's really cool. Thanks, Bill.
TJ, are you using PropStream now, or I forgot what you were using before? Okay. Yeah, let me know how that is. I think we were talking about that a little bit. PropStream really helps with all the comping and everything, but just like any of these other sites, whatever tool you use, you want to make sure that you check it with other resources just to verify. So if you're using Zillow, make sure you double check it with two other things that you feel are pretty accurate for the market value, whatever's working best for you. Okay. So any other questions before we just basically we'll open it up and everyone can talk. They can have like a virtual networking session. Any questions to myself or Matthias, or let's see.
Maybe that's a good conversation to have when we open it up.
Let's see. Ray says any post-pandemic tenant screening tools / tips do / don'ts. We can't just do like Scarlet and Gone with the Wind and say the war is over. Bill, if you are open to speaking, I would just turn that over to you. You can just, if it's all right with you, Bill, and is Bill still around?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. If that's okay, we can just have Bill speak on it.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, perfect.
What was the question one more time? Make sure I caught that correctly.
Sure. So Ray was wondering, are there any post-pandemic tenant screening tools / tips or do's and don'ts? He was saying we can't just say that, everything's behind us. So what are your thoughts on all of that? And are you doing any post-pandemic tenant screening?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing pretty much the same process that we were doing beforehand. We're still verifying employment, verifying income of at least 3 times monthly rent, and, just verifying everything else that's on our pretty strict list of verifications. But, Yeah, we haven't had any trouble finding tenants or finding qualified tenants for properties even throughout this whole thing. It's just important to have written criteria of what you're looking for to avoid discrimination and a few other things, but just sticking with your written criteria, it seems to work out just fine.
Perfect. Actually, could we go ahead and just
Open it up.
well, I was gonna say we could open up to Ray real quick to make sure that answered his question. I saw Kevin had
Oh
his
yeah.
hand raised too.
Yeah, yeah,
So if we could, let's see if that answered Ray's question. He could also talk briefly about the syndication meetup for next month, and then we'll answer Kevin's question.
Oh, sure, it answered my question. And I was just thought it'd be fun to discuss, and I was curious what people had been encountering, and especially when people like lose jobs and are starting a new one. I know that there's a lot of metropolitan migration where the big cities are just losing people by the droves, and they're heading to rural and suburban areas just for quality of life. They can virtually commute and all that, and I didn't know if there was any good things being done or potholes to not step in. But yeah, you answered my question. Just stay the course and have the written criteria, so you treat everybody the same. But yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think the thing is too is personally, we've noticed that there are a lot of programs out there now, and it seems like they're rolling more out to help renters and homeowners that are struggling with something that's where their job has been impacted by COVID-19. So there's a lot of resources out there to help the tenant base. It's just you've got to find or look for it essentially too. But screening wise and tool wise, yeah, we haven't really changed much. But Ray, would you mind just speaking briefly about what you want, what we're going to cover for next month, and that we could also have it open ended if there's any questions that any attendees have for you, then we can have everybody unmuted at the time and could run those by you.
Sure. Yeah, it's a natural progression of real estate investing. When you get, one deal and then another deal, then you might get a bigger deal or a combination of many, many small deals, and you want to get a larger pool of money where it would take several private lenders to come together to do that. And then you can use that as part of your money to go to the bank, or you can just use private money just exclusively. But to do that legally, you need to be able to put that in something, and other than your back pocket for good keeping. And so that's what a syndication does. And also a fund. A fund is more of on an ongoing basis. And these are good for, like larger deals, as well as, an ongoing. If you do fix and flip and you want to do your own deals and have basically, that's one thing. Or if you want to actually graduate and be a hard money lender, then, that's something. And so you may already have people supporting you that are in your network that it'd be a nice convenience as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm looking forward to hearing it next month too. And unfortunately, I won't be able to do it in person because I remember we met a little over a year ago. You had that nice game we played, which was
Yeah.
a lot of fun. I don't know if there's a virtual way.
Actually had a bucket, gave away Monopoly money. It's always fun.
Yep, yep. I guess there's no virtual way of doing that. Otherwise, that'd been really cool. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, people
Really
get a
quick.
little squirrely when you start making virtual bank wire transfers.
Yeah, that could definitely have some issues. Before we open it up, if we could just unmute Kevin. So I think he had a question, and then we can open everybody up and have some virtual networking.
Actually, hey guys, thanks. Wasn't really a question. It was actually a follow-up comment on the gentleman who had the mic 2 positions ago. I was just wondering, other landlords out there, if you're doing anything different, more protection for security deposit and whatnot. The moratorium on the evictions is kind of something we never thought would ever happen. We lived through like 4 months of it now, and Doing a little bit of a shameless plug here also. If you haven't talked to your Congress, excuse me, to your General Assembly folks and down in Richmond, they're meeting right now, and I attended a public comment session on some Senate bills, and one of the bills that is being pushed really hard. Let's look up the number here in a second, but is a moratorium on any evictions other than like criminal activity occurring in the residence until April of 2021. And obviously myself and many other landlord advocacy groups argued against it, but man, it's an uphill battle. They're literally wanting to have a moratorium on any kind of payment evictions until 2021, April, that is. And by then, they'll have the General Assembly will have another session, and they will, for all I know, they'll pass it again. So just warning landlords out there, but also wanting to hear if anyone's out there reaching out to their General Assemblymen, especially your senators right now, and I can give you the committee. It's the General Rules and Technology Committee. Again, General Rules and Technology Committee. Highly recommend you reach out to them and voice your opinion. But like myself, I'm looking at collecting double security deposit now, because I've lived through 2 tenants here in the past 4 months that heard that they couldn't get evicted, and they were right. No matter what they did wrong, you could not evict them. So.
Wow. Would you be able to email Mateus and I that information? We could send that out to everybody too, because I think it'd be great information for everybody here to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every
do
time
you guys know Chip Dix?
I don't think so. Do you?
Mm, no.
He's some bigwig with I'm sure Funkhouse Kemper knows him. He's some bigwig with the Realtors Association. He spoke against the bill today also. So yeah, I'll send it to you so you can send it to everybody else. But I'm going to send you what I get from VAMA, Virginia Apartment Managers Association, and there's, like I said, 3 bills out there. Even the one that VAMA is having to champion, they don't really want to champion that one. It's still not great for us, but compared to the other one, the one I just mentioned, it's night and day better. So.
We've had crazy ones in the past where they were trying to make it so you couldn't evict if it was, too cold or too hot. I remember we had meetings on that too, and so it's a constant battle. But that'd be great information to pass along to the group so we could all reach out to, especially for something serious like this.
And I can set a recap email with the video of this, and then also that link. So again, if you haven't signed up for the email list, then I'll send that again.
Yeah. But anyways, other landlords, are you guys, as a matter of practice, I collect first month's rent, final month's rent, and security deposit, because you know how it is. A lot of people want to go like, well, hey, I'm moving out, keep my security deposit as final month's rent, and then they leave you a mess. So that's what I've been doing. But now I'm seriously considering doing double security deposit. These moratoriums are making me really screen people a lot more, people who care about their credit. Whereas before I was like, I don't really care about the credit too much, because, a lot of long-term renters don't necessarily have great credit anyway. But now, if I can never get rid of them, and they know that, I think they're going to be even more difficult to deal with. So, other landlords, any thoughts?
I think I guess we've been really lucky. We just have the theory that if we have any issues at this point, then they're just kicking the ball down the field. I mean, as soon as everything's over, then it's going to go through at that point. I mean, who knows how long everything's going to last essentially, but if they start holding out payment or doing things like that just because they know they can't get evicted, then they basically sentenced themselves to eviction in the future is what they've done. That may sound harsh, but that's just kind of, we try to have the best faith in people. We're very, very kind of have a good working relationship with our tenants. So we really haven't had much issue, but that's essentially how it's being handled. there are any in the future.
Gotcha.
We haven't started taking extra down payments or anything like that, but that might be something if we start having issues, we'll probably start looking at doing things like that, like first and last month's rent plus security deposit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we haven't really had a lot of issues with non-payment either. I think we have, 1 out of 90 right now. But I think that's getting resolved here at the end of the month. We have a court date set up already. But yeah, I mean, just as long as you have that written criteria, so you're treating everybody the same, our screening reports will come back either with a denial, a conditional approval, or an approval. And if it comes back as conditional, then we do often do like a double security deposit and or cosigner or something along those lines. So it's always an option in certain circumstances, but I tell our new homeowners right now, or new landlords, it's a better time right now to actually get somebody, because we can screen them with everything going on. So we know that they have, stable employment and stable income. Whereas somebody that we screened a year ago, you never know what would happen, with jobs and whatnot. But those new people coming in, we can certainly screen them that right way and make sure everything's good to go from here. And we haven't really had a whole lot of issues compared to some other places around the country, but.
That's a really good point. And you mentioning cosigner there, a technique I haven't used in a long time, honestly, but that might be the way to do it too. Because again, certain properties, I just know that I'm going to have certain clientele that just maybe they have bad credit and they're not going to care. And if they're not going to care if you take them to court or whatever, because you can't get blood out of a turnip and all that good stuff. And credit's already terrible anyway. And in theory, if they haven't been paying rent, and again, the way the legislation is written, it does not have to be because of a financial issue. It could be you can't keep them out for anything unless they've committed like a criminal act at your property. In theory, they could go from this past April when it started all the way till next April and not pay rent. Now, me personally, I've gotten mine resolved as well, but it's starting to worry me a little bit. So I'm liking that cosigner thing. That might be something I look into a little bit more, maybe their parents or something.
Yeah, we use cosigners. I mean, we won't use cosigners if they, if they don't meet the income criteria, but for credit issues and stuff like that, we do use cosigners. And a cosigner is not going to want a big hit on their credit report for, an eviction or a judgment or anything like that either. So that's been helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
And I think too, one thing that might be helpful is if you have somebody, it sounds like you have where they're not planning on paying rent, and they're essentially just taking advantage of the system. There's not a whole lot you can really do. I mean, other than doing the cosigner, I think that sounds like a great thing as well. But if you have someone that's usually paying rent and they're struggling now, then there are a lot of programs. And I can shoot you an email with a couple, because we've had one tenant that's kind of been struggling. We're working with them, but there are other programs out there now that are helping pay the rent or a high portion of it due to COVID-19. So there are definitely options out there for those that want to try to pay the rent, but for those that are just taking advantage of the system, there's not much we can really do aside from the victim.
Yeah, I actually filled out one of those forms today, as a matter of fact. And it's funny, this is why we're so like trillions of dollars in debt, because her issue had nothing to do with COVID. She just blew money, basically. She had nothing to do with COVID at all. But long story short, filled out one of the forms that the program is set up to allow for. It just doesn't matter like what the reasoning is. Fill out the form and got the approval back that it's going to be paid. That's a short-term funded program. The one I'm not familiar with, but they referenced it a lot today on the at the Senate hearing, was the 50-50 program, where the landlord has to agree to wipe clean 50% of the debt owed, and the other 50% the program will pay for. Now, again, I'm not familiar with it, but a lot of other of these major organizations knew what they were talking about, because they referenced it a lot and how unfair it is that they're making the legislature is making landlords eat the costs of this colossal problem.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think it's hit. I don't know where the last gentleman is located, but I don't think it's hit the western part of the state too much yet. But as a harbinger, Northern Virginia, Tidewater area, Richmond, It's huge issues there. I mean, there's landlords that are like they're screaming bloody murder over what what they've been dealing with.
Yeah, that can kind of be up there, can be kind of tough in general to begin with, and then now, especially like DC, that area, but now it can be really tough.
Yeah.
There's one other one that I've heard of, which is I think they have the 50/50 option, but they also do they'll cover, it basically worked out to being like 50% of the previous months and then the full current month. So let's say if it's 3 months, then two previous months that are past due, and then the current month they'll pay the full current month and then half of the other 2 months. So that can come out to be a little bit more than the 50%, but yeah, it still has the landlord either eating the cost or you have to work out a payment plan with the tenant to get caught up, one of the two.
Oh, and by the way, that's the other thing. Keep an eye on that when this session gets done. Remember, this is a special session here in the late summer. They usually don't have. Another bill they spoke of today, I can almost guarantee is going to pass because nobody objected to it. Even, during those, when you have those meetings, you have the advocates on the, I can't think of the phrase, but they're basically all pro tenant, and they're like poverty center and just tenant advocacy groups. Who funds them, I have no idea, but nonetheless, there's a lot of them. And then you have the other side, which is the landlord and housing provider interest groups, one of which I belong to. But the one that no one objected to was that it will be a law now that you're going to have to, and I think this is going to last forever. I don't think it's going to go away after COVID, that you have to set up a payment plan if someone misses rent, not to exceed a period of 6 months or the end of the lease, whichever occurs first. So I think I've done that before on my own, just because you want to keep a tenant, if they're willing to work with you, you try to keep them.
Yeah.
It's the one who just cut off all communication with you. But it puts the onus on you as a landlord to offer that kind of program. And I think that was I sent it to you, Mateus. I sent you the email. You can forward it out to everybody, but I think that was Senate Bill 588. That's the one that did not get any kind of objection at all.
Okay.
Kevin's always got like the law updates before we even know about them. Because you sent us the thing last time about the new landlord act where they have to sign what their rights are and everything.
Yeah.
So I had to use that back in July.
Yeah. And you will not win an eviction if you do not do that.
Yep.
Period. And the fact that you have to accept Section 8 now. That's a huge deal.
Yep.
I don't research this stuff. VAMA sends it to me, and they're always asking for people to come testify. So that's what they wanted today, which is pretty cool because I could sit here in Harrisonburg and testify in front of Congress, in front of General Assembly, not have to drive down there. Still, it was a 4-hour Zoom call, though.
Wow. You're getting your Zoom time in today, huh?
Yeah, I was doing other things. You know how it goes. But I was like, man, I'm telling you, that's an industry changer. The way that Senate Bill 5051, it's the first one listed in your email, Mateus, the way that one's written, oh my gosh. And see, remember, in June, the moratorium it wasn't a legislative thing, it was a judicial thing. That the Supreme Court of Virginia excluded all evictions, period. It didn't matter what it was.
Yeah.
Someone in Vama had a shooting at one of her apartments, and they couldn't evict them. And it's like, man, so Senate Bill 5051, it's sponsored by somebody out of Virginia Beach, I think. She at least puts an exception in there for criminal activity, but you guys know how it is. There's numerous reasons why you have to evict somebody. It's not always criminal activity or failure to pay. It's smoking in the house or just loud noises, and tons of things. But this would allow someone to falsely ride coattails on the tragedy of this epidemic. It would do the wrong thing and then get protection because of the COVID, which has nothing to do with a lot of times what their actions are. So
Yeah. It's one thing if you lost all your income and livelihood because of your job and you can't pay rent. It's another if you just stop paying. And then especially with situations like that too, where you're causing trouble to other tenants and are really just taking advantage of the situation, you know?
Exactly. Oh, and I'll give you one better because this happened to me too. And again, if you know, you now have to accept Section 8. If you deny a Section 8 person, and you don't hold it for the 15-day period and all that good stuff, once they've applied, you've violated fair housing. It's like violating someone's rental rights if they were white or black or male or female or whatever. It's just as bad. It's a protected class now. So I had a tenant during the moratorium who just would not fill out her renewal paperwork with HUD. Had nothing to do with me. Had nothing to do with COVID. She just wouldn't do it. She's just lazy. And they were trying to get her to do it and everything. And long story short, she wouldn't do it. So HUD kicked her off the program as they are supposed to. Well, here I am now. I can't evict her, and I'm not getting any payments. So I made sure I brought that up today too. I was like, see, this is what happens when you guys just create these blanket no evictions, period. You know, what's next? You're going to like commandeer our homes and just give them to the tenants? Like, you know, where
Yeah.
you're gonna.
Oh, by the way, everybody, you're all able to speak now. If you want to go on the very bottom, I believe, of your screen on Zoom, you should have an option to click on your mic or even your camera too, if you want, in order to join and just chat, ask any questions. I mean, it's very laid back right now, but anyone can talk right now. It's just kind of networking time. So I'm actually gonna stop my screen share too. Close out of this. But I'm going to duck out a little bit early. I've got a family gathering to go to, but it's been great seeing everybody today. And we're still going to have the virtual networking time now, but I'm just going to turn it over to Mateus, and I'll see you all next month in September. Thank you.
Thanks, Chase. Yeah, I know Kevin's not putting his camera on because I'm pretty sure he's not wearing a shirt, but sorry, Kevin, I have to throw you under the bus.
Pants are optional. I was on a Zoom call for 4 hours today. Dang it. I'm going to relax now.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously. Yeah, does anybody else have any other topics they want to talk about? Any strategies or any experiences they've had in the buy and hold realm, or just investment real estate in general? If not, I think go
Don't mean
ahead.
to monopolize time, but I got a question for the group because I joined late. Is anyone having well, two things. One, is anyone having issues with I guess the false flag of ESAs, emotional support animals, where everyone's dog is now an ESA, and that's one question. And number two, when they're not an ESA, what are you guys typically doing for security deposits when it's just truly a pet?
Are you allowed to do security deposits and stuff for ESAs? Is it
No.
Okay.
No. No, it's another fair housing violation.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would recommend, it's free to you, petscreening.com. We use them a lot for our pet screening type stuff. They will verify, support animals and ESAs and all that fun stuff, free of charge to the potential tenants as a part of the screening process. And also while they're in there, they'll also, just for pets, they'll, make sure there's nothing on a dangerous dog registry, verify vaccinations and shots, and kind of make sure you're working with a responsible pet owner. We typically will charge $25 additional per pet per month, and we increase the security deposit by $250 per pet. Just make sure there too you don't call it a pet deposit, because then you're kind of stuck using it only for pet damages. If you just increase the actual security deposit, then it can go towards anything. Just a little wording there, but yeah, down here in I'm in Waynesboro. We cover Waynesboro, Stanton, Augusta County area primarily. Gosh, we haven't really seen a whole lot of people abusing that system yet. Or using support animals as a way to get away with not paying for anything, but I know it's different in different areas.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm only speaking of the typical 10 to 15% of humans that cause problems. The other 80, 85% are fine, but I'm seeing that every inquiry I get on my online ads all say, you ask, do you have any animals? They all say, I have one dog. Well, a lot of them are saying, I have a dog. It's an emotional support animal. And then when you start talking to them, they don't have they don't meet any of the criteria. When you put them through the screening process that I have is trained by VAMA, but you're saying that there's one, I have to get that address from you again, but you're saying this one puts the onus on them to get the paperwork. Is that
Yeah, so
right?
petscreening.com, and they're the founders of petscreening.com. They are involved in every single support animal law that comes out. I mean, they're very involved with that. But yeah, petscreening.com is the website, and basically they can go on and they can create their pet profile if it's not a support animal. And again, if you're going to use it for support animals, you got to use it for everyone, because you can't make it an extra hoop for them to jump through type thing. But yeah, so if it's a pet, then they'll verify, vet records and vaccinations and all that stuff. And if it's a support animal, they'll verify the paperwork and whatever else they need. And, it just kind of allows me to stay out of that completely, so I don't slip up on anything with how fast the rules change on that. And, they take care of everything. When you use a place like that as well, it kind of cuts back on the amount of fraud you get out of it, because they see that there's an actual process that you have in place, instead of trying to pull the fast one on a silly old landlord that they think they can get away with. So it's worked well for us.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, man. I got it.
Yeah, check it out.
Have you guys had any unusual pets being requested, like miniature horses?
I haven't, no. But you have to accept whatever that is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's
crazy.
at least training I went to said that. And I kind of get the miniature horse one, because they live so long that it actually does, for some people it is, it's legit.
Sure.
And you have other people riding false coattails on it and it dilutes the significance of the folks that really do need them. It's like when people have an emotional support animal that's a puppy. Like, well, how's that puppy been supporting you? Like, it was just born.
It can barely support itself.
Yeah. I can tell you, like I said, I gotta do the plug again. It's amazing to me how much the industry is changing with the laws. And if it hasn't hit you yet, I'm telling you, it's going to. I've been shocked. It's all, I don't know if you guys know, but it's all because of that stupid New York Times article was written like 2 years ago. It showed the reporter did an analysis on all the landlord laws in the entire country, and Virginia ranked like the worst, like worst for tenants, best for landlords. But he used metrics that were unfair. He used the number of unlawful detainers filed per capita and whatnot, and just it was incongruent data, because back then, 2 years ago, there were many situations where you had to file an unlawful detainer over and over and over again, and they've since changed that. VAMA helped lead the way to get that changed. So now the numbers aren't as high. One unlawful detainer can take you through the entire eviction process. So those numbers will come down, but that got so much national attention that they had to start changing laws, because the tide just was going that way. When I'm telling you right now, they're not letting up. If you look at some of the bills that's before General Assembly right now, they're very anti-landlord.
Well, I know that Virginia Realtors is working on that as well. They're doing what's best for all the people that are homeowners, and I mean, looking out for tenants as well, certainly. But trying to make things work in a sensible way.
Yeah, it was weird. It was very surreal. Even the realtor, I think he's the legislative affairs liaison
Okay.
for the realtors group or whatever.
Yeah.
He he was like, he even said, like, um, you're making us burden everybody's pain here, and it's like you think we're the evil guys pushing people out. Want them to, we don't want people to go homeless either. We just don't want people taking advantage of it. But we have to pay bills also. Blah blah blah. And the response was like, so. It was like so like logic nullification. There was no like, oh, okay, we hear your side of it too. It was like, yep,
Yeah, there's a lot of elderly people that's their income.
exactly. That didn't get brought up. That's a great point. Because I was like by far the smallest um, uh, dude there insofar as assets. There were some big conglomerates there, and they were just like they were the man. We want to take down the man. It was like a redistribution of wealth kind of mentality. You could just feel it. It's weird.
Yeah,
It
and
was
then
like,
there's the dynamic of, if you own it with cash, which few do because that's one of the benefits of real estate, but if you do own it with cash or a substantial equity position, then you just weather the storm, make less money, and surface on the other side. If you have a debt position, well then, now you're the one who's do you go negative, pay the debt service, and then keep the banking relationship. And a lot of them, just about everybody can weather a little bit of a storm. 1 month, 2 months, three, not 6, 7, 10 months. That's when systems start to break. But then a lot of a couple of the other groups that I'm part of, we were talking about that. If you lived in a place, if you're average American family, you buy a house, you pay it off, and maybe you're in a retirement home now, and the house that you lived in as a family is now your rental income. You own it free and clear, but now your income is, well, now what? That's a different animal.
that's
That's not
right.
an evil profit motivated capitalist out there.
Yeah, that is a great point. You should have been there to testify today. That is a great point. I'm serious. It did not get brought up that way. It was. I try to stress, hey, like I'm a little guy here. I'm not these. I don't own 650 units or whatever these people owned and whatnot. And it's just like I'm speaking up for the little man. But honestly, I wasn't even thinking about that because that's pushing grandma off the cliff there.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then the stress. Yeah,
Yeah, and they can't keep up with the laws. I mean, they're they're getting excessive. It's hard for me to navigate through this stuff now. And I
yeah.
go to the annual certification. It's like I had to pull out the book all the time. Be like, all right, how's it changed now? I got to do what?
Yeah, one of the other things that was brought up was just the key critical importance of maintaining relationships, landlord-tenant relationships, because you know if they've been renting for uh, 1, 2, 3, however many years, and you've been an asshole, and then
Yeah,
now they've got enough ammunition to really, they're like, "Huh, I've been waiting for this. Should have fixed my dishwasher 6 months ago." Yeah.
yeah. That's
Human
another one
nature
too.
is going to be human nature. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one too. That's a new law change as of July 1st. Is that once they send you a notice, I think it's only 14 days. If you don't reasonably action it within 14 days, they can fix it themselves and deduct from the rent. It used to be they had to put the money into escrow at the court. They can directly deduct from rent now. So, and me personally, I don't really have a big deal with that because I'm Johnny on the spot with repairs because I believe in the broken window theory. If there's one broken window, there's going to be, 10 later.
Yeah.
Um, but I know a lot of people that's going to be, and you think, well, tenants won't know that, but they make you give them that. Have you seen I don't know if you're a landlord or not, but have you seen that new sheet you have to give out now with every new rental? It gives their rights and responsibilities and who to call if they have
Hmm.
any issues. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't manage any property in Virginia now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a fun form. And, non-renewing leases, you have to basically give them a way to fight you on it too by giving them that information. And none of it makes any sense to me.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if that was a a two-sided piece of paper to where these are your rights, flip it over, these are mine. And so it'd be almost a blank sheet, but it'd be nice if there was writing on at least on the other side. It'd be a good form.
Yeah,
My old
you hear stories too about like a homeowner who wants to move back into their home when the lease ends, and then they have to, now if they don't want to renew, they have to give them a list of, you know, resources for them to fight you on it, and it basically can prolong that. So I mean, it's just so many restrictions on private property that just doesn't make sense to me. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and they say they've Bama at least said, I don't know for sure, but they said they've tried to challenge it legally already through court, and it did not win. They did not win on the offensive. They keep saying on the offensive. Again, I'm coming to some late on some of these conversations. They said on the offensive approach, court has not worked for us, so we might try the defensive approach, and I don't know what that means, but when they did take the moratorium back in June to the Supreme Court, and that was a narrow decision. The Supreme Court ruled, yes, it's legal, but it was the Virginia Supreme Court, but it was a very narrow decision. It wasn't like it was, unanimous. So it all depends on who's sitting in the General Assembly and who's on the court at the time. Don't forget to vote.
Sending out that handout now.
Which one?
It should be the handout that you have to give the new tenants.
Oh yeah, rules and regs.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how dumb they are. Okay, like when they created that, when they sent it out, I went to print it off, and it cropped off half of the language on the bottom. I had maybe a quarter of a page on the bottom. So I emailed back Bama and said, hey, I can't. The law says I have to give this, but when you print it, it cuts it off. And he's like, yeah, we know. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do here? So my email to him was forwarded to some legislative office who was in charge of printing that up. And because of my email and his email to them, they finally fixed it. This is your government at work. So it now prints on 2 pages because of me. So you're welcome. But I mean, it wasn't even like it could print onto the third page or whatever. It just would crop it off, and there was nothing you could do about it. It was so dumb. And you have to give it in Spanish if they're a Spanish speaker, by the way.
Yeah, there's a Spanish version too.
And they didn't really address other languages. So who knows?
Yeah.
Did you get the other email with
I didn't.
Really?
I don't know. I've been having some issues with. I have 2, and one forwards to another one. So Matthias at harrisonburghomeowner.com works well. Sometimes I don't get emails from Matthias at funkhausergroup.com.
All right, I'll forward it now.
Oh.
I got a fun question. Other than the news, what are some of the market indicators? And I'm not talking about market real estate. Share that if you like. But, what's your Chicken Little report? Where do you look to see if the sky is indeed falling? There's a couple of podcasters and YouTube channels that I watch on a routine basis that are, have some, newsmaker types that are on there and stuff like that. It's everything from the world is going to end, buy gold, don't bother with gold, buy food, or hey, this is a blip in the screen, everything's going to be fine, keep watching cable television. What are the things that you like to watch or listen to as far as when you're rubbing your crystal ball?
I don't think I have a good answer for that.
Yeah, I don't either. I go to these meetings.
Yeah.
It's hard to know for sure, right? I mean, everything's speculation.
Yeah.
I used to say, like, hey, everyone is always going to have to live somewhere, and maybe they can't afford a house, but they can definitely rent one. But now, like, even that logic is, and again, I sound like Chicken Little saying this, but as I'm watching this legislation and stuff, I'm like, holy crap, this is getting ridiculous. It's like a socialist takeover of our private property.
Yeah.
So I don't even know that old axiom is valid uh, in the new world.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some fantastic deal flow for investors. But is the rest of the market going to go to crap as well?
Hmm.
Oh, I found the email.
Uh,
Sorry.
I tell you the biggest thing, seriously though, because they're going to vote on that in a couple of days. If anybody, and there's only like 6, 7 of you on here, but if any of you happen to live in those areas where the General Rules and Technology Committee, um, if you live in the jurisdictions of any of those senators, that's the person you really need to be talking to. Just send them an email and say, hey, I don't support this. This is stupid. Here's why. Um, I don't live in any of their areas. I already checked, but you just Google that and then look up the committee members. It's like 20 different senators.
Yeah, I can forward that email on to people then that you sent me.
Sure. And I'm not affiliated with Bama in like a official capacity other than just being a member, but I tell you, they're pretty good. I mean, it's good knowledge, good training, good networks like this, but it's just statewide. And it's only like, it's dirt cheap. It's like $90 a year or something. Now, if you own thousands of properties, it's a lot more, but they're very impressive. And it's Virginia Apartment Management Association members, but they also have another subgroup called private rental owners. So when we meet, it's definitely more about like, hey, kind of the mom and pop business as opposed to the, we own a couple thousand over here and 100 over here. It's more of folks like us.
Thanks for the plug. Can
Amen.
check it out. Does anybody else have anything they want to bring up or?
I got on here to just introduce myself. I'm brand new to the group. I'm brand new to real estate, and I'm really thankful that you guys are putting all this on. And I've gotten a lot of good notes and some good information from this. So I am very, very thankful for everybody that's on this call, who was on the call, and for the next one. So thank you very much, guys, for everything.
Yeah, thanks for that. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, I actually linked up with Chase about a month ago. So I must have just missed your last one. So, and that sounded like that was more along the lines of what it is that I'm trying to get into or trying to really get going with. But this was great information as well, because this is another avenue that I want to go down. Although, Kevin, it sounds like I don't necessarily want to go down that route right now.
Yeah.
No, don't let me, again, knowledge is power. Knowing about it is better than not knowing about it.
Absolutely.
Just don't get broadsided by something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
Where are you? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Where are you, Ryan? Where are you out of?
I'm out of Harrisonburg. So
Okay.
I've lived here for about 10 years. Actually, the only reason I even got into real estate is because of COVID. I'm traditionally in radio advertising and digital advertising, but when businesses aren't conducting business, it's kind of hard to have advertising. So I had to figure out something else to do to generate some income. And that's where this all came from. So basically I found wholesaling was the original way. And now it's like, I'm getting my mind blown every single day with just more and more and more information. And it's like, I'm just trying to suck it up as fast as I can, because
It's a bit of a rabbit
And
hole.
and it also, the crazy part is it sounds like, you know, the rules are changing just as fast as they're being written right now. So it's like, you know, just trying to stay on top of all that stuff. Make sure I don't get into a situation where I really end up, you know, doing something I shouldn't be doing, or end up in a situation where I'm out of money. So
Yeah. Cool.
Hey,
Yeah.
Matthew, it's Owen here. Sorry about that.
What's going on, Owen?
Hey, brother, I'm from Colorado, and I saw you guys link, so I hope you don't mind me jumping in on this.
Not at all. Happy to have you.
Great. Hey, do you guys have any current listings or any pocket deals?
I've got a couple listings in Strasburg, Virginia.
Oh, okay. I was talking about locally. Are you local in Clarksville?
I am Harrisonburg, particularly.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys pick up deals in Clarksville area?
I haven't.
Anybody in this group?
not yet.
Oh, okay. Well, that's amazing. Hey, good info, by the way. Appreciate you guys sharing it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining.
Hey, that last speaker, there's a guru in Colorado. I know Colorado's a big state, but there's a guru in Colorado named Dwan Twyford. And I bought some of her courses a long time ago. I always said if I lived in Colorado, I'd go find her. She and her husband are like, I mean, they know their stuff. You might want to look her up. Dwan, D-W-A-N. Just type in Dwan in real estate and it'll pop up.
Awesome. Hey, I got my, oh, we don't have to chat anymore, right? I got my email in that chat.
Yeah, the chat's up still, so you're welcome to put it in there.
Yeah, can I drop my email in there and then?
Yep.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Was that Kevin or Ryan?
Yeah. Yeah, that was Kevin. But
Are
like
you
I
on
said, just type in Dwan and you'll find her.
Awesome, man. Appreciate that.
Can
Well, hey,
everybody
guys,
see each other? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm actually just going to get off here. So thank you so much for the call tonight, and look forward to the next one. Thank
Yeah.
you. And is it Matthias?
Matthias, yeah.
Matthias? Are you local to Harrisonburg? Or
Yeah. I
you
live
are
in,
here?
yeah.
Hey, if you ever want to meet up or anything like that, man, I'm here in the local area. So, like I said, I'm already connected with Chase, and he knows a little bit more about me. So, if you want to meet up one day or something like that, I'd be all open.
Sure, we can do coffees or beers or something outdoors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely look me up. It's on harrisonburghomeowner.com. You can find me.
Harrisonburg homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an email? I can just shoot you an email at
Yeah, Matthias at Harrisonburg Homeowner.
Matthias at Harrisonburg homeowner.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate that. And I hope everyone has a great night. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Yep.
Hey, Matthias, I'm going to jump off here, but congratulations about going national. It's pretty cool.
Whoa, what do you mean? Oh, yeah.
You got guys in Colorado hitting you up.
Yeah, and I'm curious where you saw the link. Was it on Meetup?
Yeah, I saw it on Meetup because I got like 2 properties down in Clarksville area, and I saw it on Meetup.
Got it.
Are you from the Virginia area originally?
Say again?
Are you from Virginia originally? What's your affiliation?
So originally from Samoa, but I was in Richmond and Yorktown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But then I'm in Colorado right now, so
Yeah, gotcha.
I guess Kevin was right. Congratulations for going nationals.
We'll go overseas next.
I know, right? That's crazy. So did you guys start this RIA? Is this like a real thing that you guys started?
Yeah. Chase and I both kind of started separate ones. And then we kind of joined forces. And then when COVID hit, we went virtual, which, I mean, I think it'd be cool to have some kind of continuation of this. Like, I think live streaming on Facebook's cool.
Yeah.
and people like you that would be able to tune in, and participate.
Yeah, because I got a Facebook page.
You do?
You can find it with that email, so you can just tag my business up. Facebook Engineer Financial Professionals.
Okay.
Because we got a lot of partners in Colorado and here in Tennessee and
That's
Utah. So
No, that's awesome.
damn, you weren't joking about going out of state. I mean, out of country, then, huh?
Nope. We'll
Yeah.
go wherever is needed. But
There
yeah,
you go.
hey, let's go ahead and call it a night. And if
Yep.
anybody has any further questions, like I'll send an email out so we can connect that way as well.
Cool. And I'll look forward to the recording. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, man.
Bye bye.